Round 6 of the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup. We're in Königssee, Bavaria, the oldest refrigerated ice track on the planet. Built and opened in 1969, this track has been part of the home of German ice sliding, the Luge Federation based just up the road in Berchtesgaden, and is still a key stronghold for Germany in women's skeleton. Hello everybody, Martin Haven alongside me, US slider Nathan Crumpton. And Nathan, after the high-speed, long corners of St. Moritz, what a difference this track is.
It really is. It is a quick track. Most of these runs are going to be done in a little over 50 seconds. And this is a driver's track. You get onto the sled here at the start. You enter curve 1, which is a light little right-hander. And then you get set up for the S-curves, also called the Schlangengruber, the snake pit. One of the most fun things in skeleton. Feels like you're on a roller coaster ride mixed with a swing set, getting nice and high, getting kicked out of S4 here into the bend away. Take a strategic tap on the slider's left side there. Try not to hit any other walls, setting up for Jenner curve, and then the big 360-degree turbodrome, or Kreisel. One of the most difficult corners in the world for a skeleton sled. Shoots you out into a chicane, a little left, a little right, then down into the bottom of the track, going into Kelstein, C-curve, and then Echo Wand, the lowest portion of the track. Then it goes uphill into the penultimate corner, trying to hold your form, stay as still as possible into the Ziel curve, the finish curve right here, and then crossing the finish line.
Well, it's all over in a heartbeat. 50-odd seconds down the track, and in St. Moritz we're doing 1 minute and 20, so it must feel like you're only getting half a run in here. Air temperature hovering around 0, ice -1, so not as cold as we were used to just a week ago, but it is cold down here. The ice at the bottom in the lake is frozen out to a distance of about 6 kilometers from here. There's Janine Flock and Lelda Pregelena for Austria and for Latvia. A couple of athletes missing from our field this weekend. Yulia Kanakina is at the Junior Worlds, and Marina Gilardoni, who took bronze medal in both races last year, is out with a back injury. You just saw Lizzie Yarnold, the Olympic champion, back on form this season, yet to win, but still lying in 5th position, 6th position in the World Cup rankings. And we have had 4 different winners this season, including 2 first-time winners. Yelena Nikitina, former junior world champion, is in the field here. She's now 25, too old, 26, nearly too old to compete in junior worlds. We have a brand new Russian to conjure with this weekend. And a decent field, 22 sleds, despite a couple of absentees through injury in Junior Worlds, and we will be kicking off with the youngest slider that Russia has presented in the World Cup, Alina Tararishenkova. So you'll see our World Cup points leader, who is also one of our first-time winners this season, Jacqueline Lerling, and the local girl, Anna Fernstedt, goes off 13th. She's from the Berchtesgaden region. She went to the Christopher Schuler just down the road that has produced so many great sliders in bobsleigh, skeleton and luge. But first, to get our race underway, is Russia's Alina Tararishenkova. 16-year-old track and field athlete, has competed in precisely 7 races in her career, including the Youth Olympic Games in Lillehammer 4 years ago.
And what a race for her to be getting into today. Gets on her sled, nice and quiet, riding that Willy Schneider German-made sled. Those sleds are known to track quite well here, get a good bit of speed as we see her making her way through the S-curves, getting nice height in S3, coming out of S4. Taking that tap on the slider's right side. Oh, just trying to avoid the skid and trying to avoid some more. Just correcting with her feet as she goes into Kreisel, 108 kilometers per hour.
Well, you can imagine the nerves perhaps first off as well, not just sort of in the cycle, but absolutely center stage. She has raced here before in Europa Cup, but I can't imagine what's going through her head. You probably remember that from last year, Nathan.
It's a big step up getting into the World Cup stage, and she's doing a nice job. She's holding her form well. She's getting across the finish line here with a 53.44. We'll see how that stacks up against the rest of the field. She did have a nice exit of Kreisel, which is, I would say, the hardest part on this track.
2 seconds away from the track record set in December 2015 by Tina Hermann, but it is warm today. Is the ice going to be soft and slightly slower perhaps than we might expect?
It could be. The track is well hidden in the shade here, though, and that does keep the temperatures down a little bit. It's been cold all week through training. Here we get see the replay, and she comes out, she hits that slider's right side out of S4. Then she takes that strategic tap, but doesn't get enough bounce off of it, and then tries to make the corrections with her toes as she makes her way into Jenner curve.
First leg down and clean for Alina Tarochenkova. This is Jane Channel of Canada. She wanted to make sure I didn't beat her up about anything in her run here. This is such a tough track, isn't it, to get clean? Just spoke to the top three in the women's bobsleigh race, and they're all going, oh, yeah, made a mistake here, made a mistake there. It's almost impossible to have a clean run on all these corners.
It is, yes. The Germans do have a tremendous track advantage here, a home ice advantage. And for everyone else, it's about minimizing the number of mistakes that you make down the track.
Jane Channel from North Vancouver. Best result this season was 9th last week in St. Moritz.
Jane, she's been hit or miss here in training. She's, she gets pulled just a little bit to the sliders right out of the groove, makes a nice little correction. She has had success here in the past. She does like the track, but every now and then she gets frustrated as she enters the S curves. Nice line through S2, good height in S3. Coming out of S4, does she avoid the hit? No, she takes a light little tap. We may be seeing a lot of that. Then the strategic tap, lining herself up for the entry into Jenner and then into the Kreisel. Good looking run, just dropping that little toe, trying to get her line, coming out cleanly, and into the little chicane here. Maybe a light tap as she enters the lower portion of the track.
68 miles an hour head first speed, still building towards the line.
Out of Echo 1 has a nice line out of Echo, coming up to the Ziel curve, the finish, and she'll be crossing the line in the lead with a time of 52.43 seconds, over a second in the bank.
Yeah. 2.01 ahead of Tarochenkova of Russia, and that's perhaps not surprising. Jane doesn't have an awful lot more experience here in Europe, but she has been sliding probably since, I was going to say since Tarochenkova was in school, but at 16 she's still, that didn't work, did it? Chin on the ice for Jane.
Here we see Jane entering the Kreisel, controlling that first oscillation as she takes a dip. Good timing with her toe, that's excellent timing. Redirects the sled. Dips down again, and then toe comes out for that third pressure as she enters the chicane. Nice and clean, maybe just avoiding that tap by inches, mere inches, as she enters into Kelstein.
Just got away with that. So Jane Channel, our race leader, and she is a second away from the all-time track record. Third of 22 starters in the Women's Skeleton World Cup field, your teammate Kendall Wessenberg. What's training been like for Kendall?
Kendall has also been hit or miss. She's been struggling with her equipment choices. She's been going back and forth on what type of runner she wants. She couldn't make a decision. She had some good runs and some bad runs in training. I think she's opted for a little bit more control today, so a slightly sharper runner. She gets on the sled in a 5:18 to start.
So 100th behind the Russian, who was our first out. And it's a combination of trying to have control so you don't skid, but trying to let the sled fly and so you have less control. It's such a balance.
It's a delicate balance, as we see Kendall also taking the hit, then the strategic tap, and then correcting it nicely into Jenner curve, setting herself up for Kreisel. Good speed, 110 going into Kreisel. Big wave on the second oscillation. Big on the third, but oh, she nails that exit. That looks good for Kendall. Losing some time, though. She may have scrubbed some speed. Maybe those runners are just a little bit too sharp for her as she enters the lower portion of the track.
She was out to 43 hundredths back, 35 down to 33. She was cutting a lot of ice. Big oscillation in the Kreisel as well, means she traveled a longer distance. So in the end, 4 tenths back with a 52.85. That may be one of those ones that she wished she'd left behind in training.
Perhaps so. She did have a couple of Kreisel problems, as we like to call them, earlier in training, and given all that she's been through, she might be willing to take that, but certainly some corrections to be made, and hopefully she gets a second run here and we'll have the opportunity to correct it. Here we see the Kreisel going through that first pressure. Here's the second pressure, the second oscillation, where she rises really high, using the toe, almost clipping the roof there, then dips down way to the bottom, exits out, avoids hitting the wall to her credit, and gets a clean line through down to the bottom.
Big height in the Kreisel. Is that because she came on the wrong side out of Jenner, or?
It's generally a timing issue with your steers, just when you choose to drop that toe and how hard you choose to redirect the sled. And believe me, it's much easier said than done.
From one American to another, from Kendall Wessenberg to Katie Eulender. Eulender, winner on this track in 2008.
Katie is a fantastic slider. She has tons of experience. The most experience on the women's side for the USA, coming nice and straight out of the groove with a 5.12 push time for that first 50 meters.
She had a whole season away from the ice last year, as did Lizzie Arnold, the Olympic champion, and that kind of allowed her to decide whether or not she wanted to come back. She has decided to, and so she brings that kind of rejuvenated spirit with her.
She does, yes, as she makes her way down bend away, taking the 2 taps that we're seeing all the women take, and then using her toes to just correct her line. 109 speed going into the Kreisel as she controls these oscillations and tries to hold it through into the exit. Oh, taking that little tap on the slider's right side as she enters the chicane.
Ironically, that straightened her up for the rest of the doodle. She was straight down the middle, but the big hit is going to knock some speed out of the sled. She went from 3200s back to 2600s behind Jane Channel of Canada.
Drops into second place, though, only 2/10 behind. Not a bad run.
65, that was 2/10 exactly a faster Kendall Westenberg and 2/10 slower than Jane Channel. So first 4 of our 22 athletes down, and already we're looking at the Kreisel, as it always does, creating those big problems.
Yes, we saw the thumbs down from Katie. She's not exactly happy with that. She was nailing it in training. Here we see her exit, just coming off and sliding with a little bit of a skid, and then her legs wide apart as she tries to balance the sled, tries to make the correction, but just doesn't stay off of that right wall. All things considered, though, handles it pretty nicely and carries as much speed as she can down to the bottom.
Such a distinctive Uhlaender style. She always has the knees and the feet apart. And that gives her the balance and the control she wants, I guess.
Yes, it's a sliding choice. It's how Katie has always slid since day one, and she's very well known for that style.
Next up for Spain is Maria Montejano, her first World Cup season this is. She's appeared in a couple of World Championships. This is her first full season in the World Cup, cheered on by her coach and the coach of the Belgians as well, Martin Rettel.
Maria's having a fantastic time this season. She's loving being on the World Cup Tour. She starts with a 5.24 second start, taking a very late line into S1 as she makes her way through to S2, trying to build a lot of height here on S3 before controlling it in 4, taking that signature hit. Then another tap, very late tap. Oh, is she going to be able to stay straight? No, skidding into Jenner and then going into the Kreisel with 107, one of the lower speeds, unfortunately.
There's the second oscillation, neat exit here, just skates past the wall and all the way through the doodles.
She's not quite carrying the speed as she's falling just a little bit farther behind. That upper portion of the track can be so tricky. Hopefully she can hang on here and not bleed out anymore. Really trying to hold on and have a good finish for Maria today.
5th place at the line, speed down at the bottom, 66.5 miles an hour, 68.5 is the top speed. She comes across the line, 53.63. Well, her week started well here. She arrived from St. Moritz to find her, quote, twin sister, Sara Lavrencic from Slovakia, who was here. They have traveled the world together for their entire careers, basically.
Here we go, we see Maria exiting the Kreisel, just avoiding that hit, but just scrubbing too much speed before the curve and then into the curve. Avoiding the hit on her left side as she enters Kelstein there. Not bad, but certainly a couple points that she could improve on for her next run.
Well, she's still all smiles. Maria Montejano. Jane Channel leads. It's Canada, USA, USA. 5 sleds down, 17 to go in the first heat of race 6 in the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup. Here is this season's 2-time winner and only 2-time winner, Elizabeth Farche. Won the season opener in Whistler, won again in Winterberg. So tracks with a W. Königssee. That doesn't work, does it?
Liz, a fantastic slider, and getting back to the form that we saw her a couple seasons ago with a 5:11 start time. Very competitive start time for Liz. Liz struggling a bit through training. She had a family tragedy earlier in the week. It's been in her head all week long, and she's racing in memory of her recently deceased cousin. So we'll see if she can hold on. Coming out S4 with a skid, takes the tap. Maybe she can sneak on by. Yes, she does, coming into Jenner and into Kreisel. Great speed into Kreisel, 111.1, letting the sled run. Can she come out clean? A lot of height, takes a hit. Oh, we'll see if that hurts her. Sneaking into the lead, but I'm afraid it might be dropping back as she enters the lower portion of the track here.
She did have big speed over her teammate Jane Channel, the current leader. She was 1.1 kilometers an hour in front and just hangs on at the line by a tenth.
Wow. She carried that momentum through. She really let the sled run and somehow found the speed right down there at the bottom of the track.
Boy, she drilled the wall coming out of Kreisel, and you said, you know, that's going to hurt her time-wise, but also physically. There's no impacts with these ice walls that are gentle, are there?
Liz certainly took a smack there on the exit of Kreisel. It's going to hurt her right side. Here she goes. Kreisel entering, watching that first oscillation, controlling it well, rising high on the second one, peaking, and then just getting too much late height on Kreisel, drilling the right wall, taking a double tap through the chicane, narrowly avoiding that bullnose there, using her feet to counterbalance the sled and trying to maintain as much momentum as possible.
Tina Hermann of Germany won 2 races in the World Cup on this track last year. In fact, the podium was identical both times. She beat Jacqueline Lurling and Marina Gilardoni into silver and gold. And she hit it on the nail for the 3rd time in succession.
Tina had some fantastic training runs, unbelievable speeds down at the bottom of the track. She knows the track like the back of her hand, and if there's anyone who can build speed, it is the Herminator here.
Well, she doesn't have the start, does she? But boy, she drives.
She can drive fantastically well. And actually, she comes out cleanly from S4, the only lady so far to come out cleanly through S4 as she navigates a beautiful bend away into Kreisel with 110.8 kilometers an hour speed, controlling the oscillations fantastically, exiting with a whistle clean chicane as she enters the bottom portion of the track, coming into Echo. Nice peak on Echo. Great height through the bottom of the track, and she's in the lead by 0.06 of a second. We'll see, does she open it up any further? Yes, she does, by 1/4 of a second by the finish line. Fantastic run by Tina.
And it's momentum for her, isn't it? I don't know where she finds it because she doesn't start out with it, but somehow she finds it.
She builds it out of Kreisel and then the bottom of the track. She just knows the perfect lines and is able to squeeze as much speed as possible out of each and every corner here.
Like every athlete, and you must know this feeling again, you know, just looking disappointed with your run, no matter how good it is, because it can't be perfect.
Yep, she knows she has to make the corrections. Actually digging a toe into S4, coming out cleanly though, taking the strategic tap on the slider's left side, redirecting the nose of the sled, coming down cleanly, just threading the needle there through Bendaway, entering Kreisel. Here she comes down, starting the second oscillation. Just getting the sled just a little bit to set the line, then setting it on the 3rd oscillation, and we see Tina into 1st place.
I don't think she thinks that's enough, and I think she might be right. The girl from Königssee, one of 2 here from this track. Next up from the USA, the 3rd American slider, Annie O'Shea. And Annie currently lying 10th place in World Cup points. Best result, 6th in Lake Placid, the track where she won last year.
5:06, a very solid start for Annie here. She was coming off a slightly disappointing weekend in St. Moritz last week, and we'll see if she can channel some of that energy into an improved result today. She was sending her runners to J-Lo last night. Yeah, put her in the mood.
Said if she could be anyone, she'd like to be J-Lo. I don't know whether that's for the booty, for the dancing, I'm not sure.
All of the above, I would say. Entering Kreisel here, 109.2, just dipping into the red. Dropping those toes, trying to get a nice line. Ooh, trying to sneak by. Oh, there we go. Entering the lower portion of the track. We'll see how much speed she can maintain here as she enters Echo. And then the uphill portion, just trying to stay off that slider's right wall, going into the penultimate, and now the finish curve here with a time of 52.72.
Wow. And I guess from there, you can just feel the speed bleeding away. When you've had a mistake below the Kreisel, you know, it must all feel like it's uphill.
You can tell in Echo Wand in particular, you can feel how much speed you have, and based on your exit there, you can feel exactly how much speed you are carrying or are not. And as we saw Annie, she came out a little bit too soon and flirted with that slider's right wall. Here she goes, exiting Kreisel. This is a great view. Oh, she does take that hit, just comes out just a tad too soon. takes the hit and scrubs a lot of speed, unfortunately, just trying to sneak by there into Kelstein.
Another great view of how close you get on this track. It's basically the slider is at foot level, not high up in the air for much of it.
Centimeters, make it or break it.
Jacqueline Lerling, our World Cup points leader. First-time winner this season. She won in Altenberg. Now, if there's another busy driver's track that we've been to this season, Lake Placid and Altenberg both fall into that category. So, good preparation for here?
Absolutely. Jacka is a fantastic driver. She's another one who knows how to find speed, especially at the bottom portion of the track. Not the greatest starter, and on a track that's not that long, like here in Königssee, normally it would spell a problem, but because it's so technical, she has a real chance at a podium finish here.
Marion Thies, like Tina Hermann, like Jacka, didn't have the greatest start. She won the Worlds here in 2011. 5:22 getaway.
A little bit on the slower side, as we're used to seeing with Jacka, but I expect her to build a lot of speed, especially here, getting nice high lines through the S-curves, building the momentum and setting herself up for the lower portion of the track. Ooh, just staying off that wall, takes the tap. Oh, she takes second tap. She's not quite going to be pleased with that as she enters the Kreisel here. Great speed, though, 111.1. Controlling these oscillations, using her toes, steering the sled. Beautiful, beautiful exit into the chicane.
Textbook stuff to take the lead away from Tina Hermann, the woman who she finished runner-up in last year's World Cup Series 2, 2300s in France. This is going to be a leading run. Wearing the yellow vest, our World Cup points leader, 4/10 clear of the field.
What a wonderful run by Jacka. She's got to be pumped about that.
Now, John Morgan has this theory, borne out by the stats, that if you win the pre-Olympic event, you do not go on to win the Olympics. This is the pre-World Championship event. I'm not sure if he has a theory on that. We might leave him to the second part of the race.
We'll have to see, but that is a good point that you raised, that World Championships have been changed, and they will be here later on in the year. As we see that beautiful exit of Kreisel through the chicane, does not get much cleaner than that. I am envious just watching that.
And when people get it right, you go, okay, so that's what it looks like. You just trickle down the middle like a little river down the middle of that gully.
She makes it look easy, but it is anything but.
Big smile from Jacqueline Lerling. It is not her home track, Winterberg is, yet she leads here in Bavaria. 10th of our 22 starters, Coach Eric Bonotis lays down the sled for Olympic champion Lizzie Yarnold. She wants to say hi to Nanny Rita, who's watching back home. Dad Clive and Mother Judith are at the track this weekend as well.
Lizzie just drifting slightly out of the groove, makes a very subtle correction. Saw some red tape on her shoes. That's something new. Most of the sliders have black tape. Quarter of the second in the lead here as she makes her way through the S-curves, building some beautiful height. Coming out of S4, does she control it? Takes that little tap, and then the second tap on the slider's left, just trying to sneak by inches. Good line going into Jenner and now into Kreisel. Trying to control these oscillations, getting good height on the second. Controlling the third. Oh no, takes the tap, and almost a disaster, almost flipping her sled.
Almost a Martins Ducours moment there. She was on her back and hauled herself back on, so she loses the lead, and she will be at the bottom of the top 10, nearest Arnett as she gets to the line.
Oh, Lizzie, oh
wow.
Gosh.
8th place, well, she will make the cut. There are 2 athletes behind her, so that much is certain. But, and there's the issue with the lower labyrinth, is that you have to commit halfway through the Kreisel to where your exit is, and it's hard to change that line, right?
It really is, and it just goes to show how technical this track is. This is the defending Olympic gold medalist here, an excellent driver, and here she comes out of Kreisel, just takes a little bit too much of that hit on that slider's right side, almost flipping the sled. To her credit, she wrestles it back onto the ground, avoids flipping all the way over, gets totally on her side.
Who hits there with their back?
Oh my gosh.
You know, that's a big moment for Lizzie Arnold. She was about a quarter second up going into the Kreisel. Could have been maybe 5/10 in the lead, but as a result of that, she's in 8th position of the 10 sliders who have gone down so far. She will go, I'm sure, and do a second heat to try and improve that position. Next up, Austria's Janine Flock. Janine, winner in Lake Placid, bronze in Altenburg, bronze in St. Moritz. Of course, we go to Eagles, Austria, her home track next week. But what can she do here?
Well, some of the Austrians believe that this is their second home track because it's so close to Innsbruck. Janine and the rest of the Austrian team, they have plenty of runs here. They love this track. Janine with a 5:18 to start as she makes her way down the start ramp and then into the S-curves as she spots her line. Trying to build some good speed here. Nice move, a little low into S2, coming good height into S3, taking it low, takes that tap. We'll see if she can correct it, takes the second one. And oh no, she takes the third tap. That's the one that you definitely want to try and avoid as she goes into Kreisel here. 110.3 speed, trying to control those waves. She's had great exits of Kreisel all week. Just sneaks by barely, cuts it right through the middle, and then enters the lower portion of the track.
1500s back, but that hit exiting the Kreisel may hurt her. She was only 7th on the splits. Can she find speed down the bottom? That is her habit. 5th place on the splits, and at the line, maybe 4th. 4th it is. So testing runners, testing sleds and equipment, the Austrians. We spoke to Vicky Grumberger from the Austrian men's team this morning. And he was due to have surgery, missed this race, and then return in Eagles, but he said he's now going to have post-season surgery after Korea. Janine Flock, silver medalist on this track 3 years ago. She knows how to get in among the top flight.
Coming out of S4 there, just takes that tap on the sliders, right, that a lot of these ladies have been taking. Just scrubs a little bit too much speed, and here's the mistake. She doesn't bounce off of that side enough, and then she just clips it a second time in the bend away. And that just throws her line off, breaks it into a slight skid. Coming out, oh, she does tap that sliders right. That's the difference. It's mere inches between success and failure coming out of that Kreisel.
Big old hit there as she came, dropped down out of the Kreisel. Next up for Great Britain, Laura Dees. Her only World Cup win came last season. Best result this year, a triumvirate of 6 positions, Whistler, Altenburg and St. Moritz.
Laura trying to get some of the bad memories from last year out of her head. She had a lot of trouble here at the World Cup and a couple bad training runs. We'll see what she can do now. Great start, 5 seconds on the nose. That's going to be one of the fastest starts that we see from these ladies today. Spotting her line going into S1. Trying to build as much speed as she can here into S2. Nice line into S2. Great height in S3. He's trying to stay low in S4. Takes that late tap. Another strategic tap. A little bit of toe dancing. Trying to keep it straight. Going into Jenner. Into Kreisel. Oh, she doesn't quite have the speed. 106.9. Just too many corrections in the bend away. Does she exit cleanly? Yes, she does. She'll be happy with that at least. She gets a clean exit out of Kreisel.
66.4 miles an hour into Kreisel. Top speed there is 69. That is a long way shy on pace, and that's going to hurt her all the way uphill to the finish line. 10th place on the splits at the moment from second fastest start. Again, that is one that would have been better left in training, but fortunately, that's not always the way it works.
Laura, I'm sure she's happy she just stayed on her runners that whole run, especially after seeing what happened to her teammate just a couple runs before. That's got to be something that can rattle you.
Well, that's a good point. How much do you watch when you're only a couple of sleds away from being on the ice?
There are TVs in the start house, so if a slider wants to watch their teammates or someone else do a run, they have the option of doing that. And when something bad goes wrong, you do tend to notice because everyone makes a noise. Here we go, going through the bend away. Oh, just toe dancing, really sticking out her foot, trying to correct the line, but just going into Jenner with a skid. And then through Kreisel, setting up for the second oscillation here, dropping her toe. Her timing looks nice, peaks nicely, and she does come out cleanly, which at the very least she should be happy with.
10th place for Laura Dees. And we are now down to our 13th of 22 sliders, and this is another hometown queen, Anna Fenstedt. Martin Haven and Nathan Crumpton from USA watching the action here. Fenstedt, her World Cup rookie season, but this is home for her. She goes to school just up the road at Christopher Schuler, and like her German teammates, not the fastest starter, but boy, can she drive.
If there's a time for Anna to shine, this is it. Her home track. She's had great success here before on the Europa Cup Tour, on the Intercontinental Cup Tour. You're completely right, she doesn't have the fastest start, but on this track, you don't necessarily need to have that blazing start. You need to be able to know how to drive the sled. Only the second person to come out cleanly through S4 takes the tap, just spotting her line into Jenner as she enters the critical Kreisel curve. Another great speed, 111.1, one of the fastest speeds that we've seen today. exiting beautifully, just like Jacka's.
Wow, 1800s behind. That could well be in the green numbers. Jacqueline Lurling, Tina Hermann, 1-2 for Germany. Will Fernstedt be in front, between, behind them? Hasn't quite got the speed uphill to the line, so it is second place. She splits her teammates.
Wow, what a fantastic run and a fantastic result for Anna. She's got to be pumped with that. She did struggle a little bit in training. I know her coach was a little bit upset with some of her exits in Kreisel yesterday, but boy, did she pull it together there.
2 fourth places in Lake Placid and Altenburg, her best results this season. She's not at the Junior Worlds this weekend. An awful lot of her similarly aged rivals are.
Big smile from Anna. Here she goes, taking that strategic tap on the slider's left side. Oh, she does take that second one, but luckily she does not break into a skid, holds her line. This is one of the best Kreisels that we've seen all day. Corrects that, makes a beautiful correction, keeps the sled low during those second and third oscillations. Wonderful exit. She's got to be pumped about that.
Second place, Germany now 1, 2, 3. Lauda Pregelena of Latvia, former world champion, junior world champion in women's skeleton. She too has stayed in the World Cup Tour. And perhaps the big thing this year is that this is a warm-up for the World Championships. It's a whole practice race weekend before we get back to the Worlds in about 4 weeks from now.
It is, yes. A lot of different countries here are testing equipment. They're testing their sled setups, they're testing their runners. They're using this week as an opportunity to set themselves up and see what works and what doesn't for the World Championships to come.
2 tenths ahead now. She started 5:08. We just saw Anna Fernstedt go into second from a 5:31 start.
Beautiful lines here going through S4 and then down through the bend away. She makes her way into the Kreisel. 110.8 among the top speeds that we've seen. Great lines coming through. Does she exit cleanly? Yes, she does. Clean as a whistle.
Only 800ths of that lead is left. How close will she be to the front of the field when she gets to the line? 2 corners left.
Drops into the red, coming out of Echo, into the penultimate corner. I don't know if she has quite the momentum, but this may be top 3 for her.
It is. Third place, almost second position. So that is a great run from Lauda Pregelena of Latvia.
What a fantastic slider. She's had great lines. I just don't know if she had the right equipment for some of the previous races. Handful of top 10s, but this is fantastic for her being in the medal hunt.
Yet to have a World Cup top 3 result in her career, but this might be the day if she can put another run like that in to split the Germans. Wow, that's big news on this track.
Fantastic run for Lauda. She's got to be pleased with that. She's got to stay focused and see if she can replicate it again on the second run and hopefully break up the German sweep, which we just saw.
Weighing her sled with herself. For Canada, our most recent race winner, Mimi Raneva. How do you describe the way in which she ripped the field apart a week ago in St. Moritz? Destroyed, decimated, crushed, obliterated. You win in this sport sometimes by 100th or 200th. She won by damn near 2 seconds a week ago.
Unbelievable victory from Mimi. She really flowed with the track fantastically. And part of it is because of her explosive start. She's so strong, she's so explosive, has one of the fastest starts in the women's field. Here she comes out with a 5:02, third fastest in the field, and that does her a lot of favors as she makes her way down the track.
So a big start from Lizzie Arnold, from Laura Dees, from Lauda Pregelena, now from Mimi Raneva. Only Lauda has managed to carry the speed down to the bottom. Oh, skid.
Big skid as she tries to avoid the, oh no, she takes 3 taps. That might be too many as she makes her way into Kreisel. A little bit low on speed, 108.9. Really hammering her foot into the ice there, trying to redirect the sled. Just sneaking by that exit of Kreisel there and stays off the walls.
200ths away from the lead as she drops down into the lower labyrinth. Where is she going to end up? She was second fastest. Now she's down to 7th on the split.
Just drifting away from her as she makes a couple of mistakes on the uphill portion at the bottom of the track. Does slide into 6th place. Not bad. Our coach Evo there, pleased with that result.
But listen, if she hadn't won, she already had 2 bronze medals this season, so 6th position is kind of, you know, minimum she'll accept. But having won, I don't know, now you've got to, recalibrate everything.
I don't think Mimi has as many runs on this track as a lot of other ladies as she comes out of S4 with a big skid, and that just eats away so much time. Takes the tap and then doesn't redirect it enough, takes a 2nd tap and then a 3rd before entering Jenner. And that's where she lost most of her speed.
Yeah, that bend away is just, it might as well be made a quicksand for half-hour sliders. There's Mimi lying in 6th position. 15 sleds down, and the race is being dominated by Germany. Jacqueline Lerling, Anna Fernstedt and Tina Hermann, split only by Lelda Predjelena. Joske Leconte of the Netherlands is the first of our remaining half-dozen athletes. 22 starters, only 20 go through into the 2nd heat. She's the only Dutch athlete this weekend. Her teammate off doing Junior Worlds, Kimberly Bos.
Joske, the lone representative, as you mentioned, looking for a good result. Still being coached by Kristen Bromley from afar via email and video review.
Skype and pointed arrows and carrier pigeon.
As best as you can do remotely as Joske makes her way through the S-curves. Whoa, a little bit wild coming out of S4. Makes a good correction. Can she stick it? Yes, just sneaks by, threads the needle, coming into Jenner and into Kreisel with 109. Not quite the fastest speed that we've seen as she's trying to control the oscillations. Oh, it just takes a little bit of a tap. Not too bad, not a disaster as she enters the lower portion of the track.
Posted her first top 10 result of the season last week in St. Moritz. Both Dutch girls were in the top 10.
Up through the penultimate corner, just trying to maintain your form. Takes a little bit of bump on the finish curve, crossing the line in 13th place.
So using her experience after that big hit off the Kreisel to try and mitigate against that damage.
And that Kreisel is so tricky. It really is a matter of inches between getting through cleanly or having a disastrous run, as we saw with Lizzie and a few other sliders.
Yeah, 0 to 0 is a real knife edge there, isn't it?
It really can be. So Joske, all things considered, not a terrible run. Here she comes out of S4, just taking that little bit of a tap and then another correction. Exiting Kreisel now, takes a little tap there, but again, not nearly as bad as it could be, and avoids the 2nd hit. Importantly, avoids the 2nd hit after the first one, exiting Kreisel.
13th place at the end of the first run of her race here, round 6 of the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup. Our 2nd Russian athlete now is Maria Orlova, starting in 17th position on the start draw.
Maria here, having some decent training runs here. She enjoys riding the Schneider sled there. It does take a very nice line through Kreisel, makes it a little bit easier. We'll see how it shapes up for her on her first run.
Like a number of women in the field, a one-time World Cup winner. That was in Altenburg early last season, yet to repeat that height. Oh, drifts away out of the groove.
Really squirrely out of the grooves there. Couldn't quite set her line. As you can see, her runners just going back and forth, left to right. She does have a 1/4 of a second in the lead. We'll see how it comes out through the S-curves. Nice line through S2, good through S3. Can she stay low through S4? Yep, she does. Comes out cleanly. Takes the tap, threads the needle beautifully. Nice lines by Maria.
Lots of experience. One of the more experienced sliders in the field now. Big height still on the 2nd pressure. Where does that leave her? Oh, bounces off the wall.
Small bounce, not nearly as bad as we've seen from some other ladies here. She enters the lower portion of the track. Entering Ekawant, exiting. Just taking a little bit of a tap there. She goes uphill through the penultimate corner and then the finish corner. Not a bad run, all things considered.
Top 10 for Maria Orlova. Just happy to be back on ice after having to miss out on the race in Winterberg.
The veteran from the Russian team here. She'll be glad to have that run in the books and hopefully makes a couple corrections, and we'll see if she can move up a few spots in the 2nd heat.
Yeah, get that smile back on her face. Graduate of the University of St. Petersburg, the most beautiful cities in Europe.
Really strong starter, just getting everything she can going into that sled, loading onto it, trying to get settled, but comes out of the groove here and just starts drifting. Maybe she wasn't settled in time, uses her toe to make the correction, exiting Kreisel. Oh, avoids disaster. Just taking a light hit and avoiding a flip.
Land Down Under for Jackie Narracott being played by our track DJ. The Aussie celebrated Australia Day a couple of days ago. Fellow Aussie skeleton slider Melissa Hoare's birthday today as well, so happy birthday to Melissa. Just got married, just had Australia Day, and it's her birthday as well.
You see David Swift there holding the sled and cheering Jacqueline. Oh no, she comes out so hard and she hits the side coming out of the groove. Oh my gosh, that's going to scrub so much velocity for Jacqueline here. Oh, not the start that you want to see any slider have.
600s away from the leader off a 5:15 start now. Is she going to make the field? She needs to be really clean from here on down.
She really does. Having an error like that right at the top of the track, it scrubs so much momentum. 109.6, still having decent speed, all things considered. We'll see if she can come out cleanly in the Kreisel here. Oh, sneaks by, barely, just a couple light taps, half a second behind, making her way to the bottom of the track.
Up to 16th on the split. She needs 2 sliders behind her to guarantee at minimum a second heat. 15th position, so she's trying to keep what speed she survived that first corner brush with to the line. 52.97 slide for Jackie. Swifty back coaching.
Oh man, buries her head in her hands. She knows that wasn't the start that you wanted. She's lucky that she held it together. Great composure on her part to keep her mind in the game, stay focused, and just build as much speed as she can, because when you have a start like that, when the groove kicks you out the way that it does, it's hard to make a recovery from that. Safety becomes a very acute concern at that point. Here we go. Great start, good form, loads very close to the sled, that final step, but she pops out of the groove here. We can see the sled, and it just drifts to her right, and it just takes her right into the wall, killing all her speed as she tries to toe correct it.
Took a little wriggle before it came out of the spurs. I wonder if she shifted her weight to try and dampen that down. And then when it popped out of the groove, she had no way of controlling it. Kim Maimons of Belgium, 19th of our 22 sliders. So far, at the bottom of the pile are Elena Tararechenkova of Russia, the 16-year-old rookie, and Maria Montejano of Spain.
Kim has had a slightly underwhelming year this year, battling some injuries, battling some bad results. And she is a fantastic slider, and I do think that this is one of the tracks where she can have a strong result. She does have a lot of runs here. Oh no, just takes a tap and going really late into S1. We'll see if she makes the correction here. Going through S2 into S3, trying to build that height, build the speed. We'll see if she can recover. Oh, just coming out of S4, takes the tap, trying to thread the needle now, coming down the bend away and into Jenner curve.
No skids, but 12th place start, 15th at the Kreisel.
110 speed, not bad speed. Does she come out cleanly? Not bad. I don't know if she skidded this sled there through that final pressure, though.
2,500s behind, up to 14th place. Needs to keep the speed on the sled. You can hear lots of toe and chin dragging.
Making her way through the penultimate corner, trying to hold that form, carry as much momentum uphill through the finish line. 9th place, not a bad finish there for Kim. Coach Martin Rettel happy as well.
Yeah, and rightly so. She really made the best of that. Off an identical start, came down 4,500s quicker than Jackie Narracott. She went to the Christopher Schuler just down the street. This is home for her. She grew up in Bavaria. She knows this track well. Not happy with that, but not the worst run you'll see.
No, she has had a rough season. I think she's pumped to be in the top 10. This is her home track, as we mentioned. She does have a lot of runs here. She knows the ins and outs. And even if she does have a mistake, as we saw her have in the beginning of the run, she knows the secret spots where she can build the speed and just relax, melt into that sled, and pick up the momentum.
For Japan, our 20th slider from the field of 22, Nozomi Komuro from just outside Nagano. Got into the sport. She was working for the Games organisers in 1998. Saw all the Olympics going on at the track and thought, yeah, skeleton, that's mad enough for me. And that's something you can relate to, right?
Absolutely. Skeleton athletes, we're all a little bit of a special breed, I suppose. As Nozomi gets off the blocks here, she is the defending Japanese national champion, and that's how she earned her World Cup berth here during the second half of the season. 5:16 start, 14th best of the heat so far, spotting her entry into the S-curves. Very nice and composed coming into S1. Going into S2, bit of a low line through S2, but builds nice height in S3. Can she keep it clean? Just takes a slight tap out of S4. Then the strategic tap. Oh, breaks into a skid though. Uses the toe to correct it. Trying to build speed going into Kreisel here.
Almost everybody in the green ahead of the Germans down to the bend away, and after that, it all goes away.
Good exit out of Kreisel though. Nice and clean, straight through the middle of the chicane as she enters the lower bit of the track.
She might be aiming for a top 12 finish.
So he comes out of Echo, stays off of the slider's right wall, trying to keep it clean. A little bit of a brush at the finish curve, but crosses in sixth place.
Sixth position, and
great job for Nozomi, and Koshi happy with that as well.
Koshi-san smiling. Well, as you say, the track in Nagano is still open. Of course, in the 98 games, she saw bobsleigh, she saw luge, but it wasn't those. It was skeleton in the national championships that started her trail here, leading up to the games in 2002.
Coming out of Kreisel, just sneaking by, brushes lightly, and then misses it by a couple centimeters on her left side. Then clean through into Kelstein.
Sixth place for Nozomi Komuro. She can hold that together. That will be a World Cup best result. So 20 sleds down. Germany dominating the top of the field. Maria Montejano of Spain in 20th. And Alina Tararishenkova, the 16-year-old from Russia, in 19th. Now, it will not be Elena Nikitina's job to bump out Tararishenkova, but if the track record start holder here, an Olympic bronze medalist, is to make the field, she's got to bump Maria Montejano of Spain.
Incredibly explosive starter here. Elena has just great turnover, long strides, just right on track. Comes out with a drift though. Oh, and a tap. Oh, that's not going to do her any favors. Gets below that critical 5-second mark, but I'm afraid she scrubbed some of that momentum with that little tap out of the grooves.
900s faster than the next fastest starter. 0.3 of a second quicker than leader Jacqueline Lurling.
0.4 of a second lead. She has a lot of time built up here. Just tiny little skids down the bend away, but setting the line. Coming into Kreisel, 109.3. Trying to control these oscillations, just getting enough waves to keep the line. Oh, a little bit of a skid and light taps through chicane. Not going to help her cause.
First woman since Lala Pregelena to have the lead onto the Kreisel. She's in the red just like everybody has been. How close will she be? 6/10 back. So she'll make the field, but she'll be nowhere near the medal. She's never had a medal on this track, although she owns the start record, 14th. Wow, she was leading at the Kreisel, and then lots of oscillation and lots of disappointment down below.
It really is a testament to the technicality of this track here in Königssee. That Kreisel is one of the hardest corners for a skeleton sled to get through cleanly. Trying to hold a clean line, but often it's much easier said than done. As she has this explosive start, fastest start in the field, beautiful load, nice and close to the sled. Gets herself on, but has just this drift to the slider's right and just makes this little tap on the wall as she exits into curve one. Out of Kreisel here, this is where we see she lost some of her speed. A little bit of a skid and then a double tap going through the chicane. Very light, but enough to bleed away her momentum for the bottom of the track.
Half of our last half-dozen sleds have had that drift out of the spurs onto the right-hand side. Final slider is Katie Tannenbaum. We have just lost Maria Montejano from the field, and Katie will need to beat our first starter, the 16-year-old Russian Alina Tararishenkova, to make it into the field.
Katie here, she's also been testing equipment. She's been trying out a bunch of different runners, seeing what works for her, what doesn't work for her. She's settled on a sharp pair of runners that she's hoping. Oh, she takes a little slip, and oh, she's lucky to make it on the sled there. Coming out with a 5:31, 21st fastest start. She's going to have to drive her way into the finals if she wants to make the top 20 here today.
Anna Fernstedt of a 5:31 start finished in second place, but then she knows the track intimately. Katie Tannenbaum less so.
Good-looking S-curve from Katie. Just coming out, taking a little tap on her left, then her right, trying to thread the line. Doesn't skid. That's where she said she had the most problems in training, was in that bend away. And she seemed to do pretty well there as she makes her way through the Kreisel. Coming off this third pressure, little bit of a tap and a skid. but not bad. We'll see what it does to her time.
She might just make the field at the expense of the young Russian. 22nd on the splits, but she had a decent run through the lower labyrinth. How close will she be? Still 22nd place at the line. It's her or Tararyshenko, and the Russian is in, and Katie Tannenbaum, 22nd place. This is only her second World Cup here. I might be mistaken. It might even actually only be her first, but Katie Tannenbaum in 22nd place, Maria Montejano in 21st. They will join the spectators trackside, and 16-year-old Alina Tararychenkova will stay in the field.
Coming through this start, just trips and takes a rough load onto her sled. It's her left hand just slipped as it tried to grip the sled, and she lost some valuable momentum at the start there with that little mishap.
Yeah, when you land like that hard, A, it knocks the wind out of your sails, and B, all the weight's going down and not forward, so double jeopardy.
Weighing her sled, making sure that all the weight requirements are within the legal limits.
And our World Cup points leader, Jacqueline Lurling of Germany, is our race leader. She is the only one of the 3 German sliders who does not call Königssee her home. She's from the Winterberg track, where she incidentally has yet to win. Second in the World Championships 2015, second a couple of weeks ago when she was beaten by Elizabeth Varche. But is she going to claim her second career win after claiming victory in Altenburg 3 weeks ago? Jacqueline Lurling leads by a quarter second nearly from Anna Fernstedt. Lelda Predjelena 500s ahead of Tina Hermann, preventing a German 1-2-3 at the moment. And down towards the tail of the field, Olympic champion Lizzie Yarnold with a nightmare off one of the fastest starts. And her teammate is, how far down the order is she? Yeah, Laura D's 19th, just ahead of Alina Tararychenkova, Maria Montejano of Spain, and Katie Tannenbaum of the Jungfrau Inseln, as they say here. Virgin Islands, they will not make the second heat. So, join Nathan Crumpton, me, Martin Haven, and the IBSF TV crew for the second and deciding heat, which comes up in just over 30 minutes from now. We'll be back with the deciding runs from Königssee, 2:45 local, 13:45 Greenwich Mean Time.